How to deal with failure in business. Something nobody ever likes doing, but I gotta tell you, damn near every entrepreneur has to. As entrepreneurs and business owners, we know that if we have a clear plan, anything becomes possible. And if you can have a clear plan, a clear process to create that plan, and a way to create clarity with your partner or spouse, you can drive to amazing heights. All right, so I started my first of 16 companies when I was 19. Built them, bought them, sold them, wrecked them. I've helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people go through these processes. And the reality is that if you're going into the entrepreneurial world, you're going to experience failure. We're going to talk about 5 steps that you need to embrace when this happens. So the first one is make sure that you don't run from it. Make sure that you step in and if you're in the middle of the failure process, sticking your head in the sand is a lot of times a way of exacerbating it, making it worse. And you're better off just dealing with it. Wade in and take it on the chin and deal with whatever you have to. Make the tough calls. Because if you don't, and you just kick the can down the road and hope that it's going to get better, I can promise you, unfortunately, hope is a really crappy strategy. So the first step is don't run from it. The second is step in and look at what can you learn from it? What worked and what didn't? Do what's called the postmortem, where you review and you look at the product. You look at how you offered your service. You look at each step one by one by one and go through each one and say, what can I do? What did I learn? What worked and what didn't? Now, something to be aware of is there's something called an outcome bias versus a decision bias. A decision bias is where you make a great decision, but maybe you end up getting beat up and the outcome wasn't what you wanted. Doesn't mean the decision was wrong. In most cases, like as an example, if I said, hey, what was the best decision you made during COVID? You're likely not to tell me the best decision. You're likely to tell me the best outcome. And when we look at that, maybe you made a great decision early on, but it was clobbered by luck or something else. Something else got in the way. And as a result, you had a negative outcome, so you're like, I'm not doing that again. So I say this specifically for the entrepreneur because maybe it was the right decision. Maybe you were the right product. Maybe your execution was poor. Maybe your timing was off. Maybe the way you were going after it was wrong, but the decision was right. And this is where you have to have an objective review on how you're looking at those things. So the first step is to don't run away from it. Second is to do that postmortem. Third is going to be, do I have a decision bias out of this or an outcome bias? And have an open and honest conversation. Now the fourth thing is don't let this define you. Please. You can tell a true entrepreneur when I'm interviewing people and I talk with them. If they're a corporate person, I'll be like, hey, tell me about a time you failed. And the corporate person is going to look at their shoes or look at the ceiling, and they're going to be really uncomfortable with talking about failure because that's not something that they probably learned from, and they feel that it's a blight on their record. Most entrepreneurs are on the exact opposite. You ask a true entrepreneur, hey, tell me about a time you failed. Oh my God, they'll look you in the eye, they'll get really animated, they'll talk about, oh my God, I did this, it was a shit show. Should have done this, and I learned this, and I came out of that. But what it did is it helped them review and learn more. It didn't define who they were. In fact, it actually empowered them and enhanced them to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So when you learn these things, how can you keep moving on it? And then the last thing is give it a little bit of time, breathe, but think about, okay, how can I do it differently? And decide, is this the right thing? But don't be afraid of getting back in the game. Because the reality is we all have failures. We all have business failures in a variety of different ways. But the key thing is, how are you going to get back into it? Are you going to let this define you? Or are you going to use this as a springboard to figure out how to do something better or different? Remember, I think it was Edison, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was like 8,000 or 9,000 times he tried different types of filament to try and make a light bulb. And they failed every time. He chose not to look at it that way. He chose to look at it as, each time I tried this different type of filament, I learned that one didn't work. So he got smarter. He got smarter and he got better every time. So ideally you found some value with this. If you're thinking of getting back in the game, that's what we do. We've got a whole course online at theaspiringsolopreneur.com that can help you very, very cautiously but safely transition into that in a very safe way so you know if you're going to be successful or not. And please subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. Keep smiling.